I am an explorer. I feel like a 19th century explorer with 21st century tools. And I take instruments like this, a microphone, and I go to crazy places around the world. And I discover how nature works through the lens of sound. And so what I want to do is take you on a journey around the world and introduce you to the sounds of nature and the splendors of this marvelous planet. Okay, so you ready to listen? So, what do you think you hear? Okay, so sounds like static, right? Would you believe that these are the sounds of our oceans? Matter of fact, the crackle that we hear right now is the most common biological sound on Earth. What's making that sound? It's a shrimp. It's about the size of my thumb. It's called a pistol shrimp. And a pistol shrimp has this amazing, powerful claw that produces a sound wave like a bullet. It passes through the water and it kills its prey. What an amazing use of sound. There are so many animals in the ocean that make sound. We're familiar with the whales, of course. But we have the fiddlers of the ocean. These are the spiny lobster that have little devices along the sides where they just almost play a little violin. I think some of the most beautiful sounds of the ocean are made by fish. Fish can produce sounds in about 4 different ways, and they chorus at night. The animals in the terrestrial environment chorus during the day, and we have no idea why there's such a big difference. But the chorusing at night is very beautiful. It's hundreds of species of fish all making sounds. But what we do know is that if they're not there, they're not making sounds. And if they're not making sounds, then maybe there's something wrong with the ecosystem. So as a scientist, I can use sound as an indicator of ecosystem health. And that's what I've been trying to do. So I've got this crazy mission. It's to go and collect baseline. What does the planet sound like? I go to every major ecosystem and I conduct studies. And you can see some of the videos here on the bottom of me working in the field and my students working in the field with all of these sensors. We're recording sounds almost every minute, every day for long stretches of time. For sometimes up to a year, my longest study is 17 years. That's a lot of recordings. 4 million of them to be exact, and it would take you about 230 years to listen to all of them. For those of you that are computer geeks, it's about a petabyte of data. And we use artificial intelligence and machine learning tools. We teach computers about what is potentially in the file, and it tells us what it hears. This mission isn't easy. I've been climbing mountains, going trekking across deserts, hiring scuba divers to take my microphones down deep into the ocean. I've done 17 so far, and guess what? I have 4 more to go. I didn't always listen the way I do now. And what I want to do is tell you a story about my awakening, how I learned to listen so deeply that it affected me as a scientist. When I went to college, I was very interested in animals. When I was a young child, I would capture animals in the backyard, mostly insects, and I was outdoors all the time. And so I went to college and I took a course to study birds. And what I discovered is that most people identify birds by the bird calls. There might be some of you out in the audience here that have that kind of expertise. And so I got to be really good at it. So I can tell you that that is a lark. It's a beautiful bird, beautiful call, very, very bubbly. So one one day I decided I was going to go and record some common loons in the northern state of Wisconsin. And I have found a forested ecosystem with lots of lakes where loons were very, very common. So I trekked there with my microphone, and that's me with my microphone there. It's a pileated woodpecker along the side of them. But as I approached the forest, this was on a spring day, a thunderstorm started to approach. I had my tent with me, and I knew that I needed to run to camp and pitch my tent very quickly, and I did. And then I crawled inside. And then what I listened to was a marvelous thunderstorm. And what I heard was lots of different kinds of sounds. It wasn't just thunder, it was thunder of like 10 different kinds of thunder. It was lightning, it was rumbling, it was crashing. And I thought, this is a lot of different sounds. What's happening above me? It was consuming me. And I thought, wow, there is a lot to sounds other than just listening to birds and studying birds. And so I heard the boom and the rumble, and afterwards, even the storm left, and I kept hearing the dripping of the water on top of the tent. And I thought, this whole thunderstorm was telling me a story about the atmosphere, right? The mixing of warm and cold gases together. I could hear the movement. I could hear the wind passing through the trees and the rain coming through. There was so much information that was being provided to me as a scientist. And so I decided that I needed to really think more broadly about sound, because it was telling me so much about nature, about the ecosystems. Sound, I've discovered, is a universal variable. It's powerful. Sound has been in the universe for 300,000 years more than light has. It's the first sense that we develop as a person. When we're born, we know the sound of our mother's voice. It's our last sense to go before we die. Many of the sounds that we have carried with us are part of our identity. It's our sonic memories. We can still remember the sounds of our childhood. And so I'm not only on a mission to go out and record the earth and make all of these marvelous recordings and study them, but I want to bring them back so that I can connect you back to nature, because I think this is really important, because we become a society, a species that exists in cities, and we've become so disconnected from nature. So one of the most haunting sounds and places that I've experienced are the sounds of glaciers. And I decided that this was something that I just needed to do. And there have been a couple of people that have gone out and tried to do this. And I had some of the best recording equipment. And so I headed to a place called Patagonia. Not a bad place to do research. And so this is me hiking through the mountains of the Andes, southern Andes in Argentina. And after spending 2 days climbing this mountain, I traversed this glacier and then took my microphone and plopped it into this melt pond plop. And I left it to record for 6 weeks. And what did we discover? We discovered that the sounds of glaciers reflect the different properties of water, the physics of water. And we began to listen to all the different kinds of sounds in these glaciers. And we began to have fun with the names of them. I'm sure you've recognized the name Zeus. You want to hear Zeus? Zeus is amazing. Just wait. Zeus is probably this massive glacier moving down the mountain. But you can hear so many other things. You can hear water rushing. And you can even see in the data sublimation, if you know what that is. And some of the sounds produce something that scientists get really excited about. It's called Fibonacci sequences. That's a Fibonacci sequence there. So glaciers still haunt me. One of the most fascinating places I've ever been is the prehistoric rainforests of Borneo. And I did some crazy things while I was there. I want to tell you about what I did. Now think about the diversity of some places where there's so many sounds that no one could ever catalog all of them. So I had to figure out how to go through and analyze the data. Now we have 700 people in the audience here. We have 750 species of animals that just make sound at this place. So if every one of you was a different species, I'd have to figure out how every one of your voices differs. But we all have to talk in the same place. So all the voices have had to evolve. So the research was focused on the evolution of sound in a prehistoric rainforest. This rainforest is the oldest rainforest on the planet. It's 100 million years old. It's just truly outstanding. There are 32 species of cicada. Some of them only sing for 2 minutes at 6 o'clock. They're called the 6 o'clock cicada. Just truly, truly outstanding. But here's the crazy part of the story. I had found out that there was a tower on the other side of the river, and all I had to do was hike there and get permission to go up the tower. And that's me on the top of the tower there. This is about 90 meters up, and I'm installing my recording devices. And so I put recorders there, and I listened. But I decided to do something that was very unusual. I spent the night, and I listened deeply. And I wanted to know, what did it sound like? And how did it compare to other places that I've been? So what did I find? At night, I heard a couple of things that just really made me stop and think as a scientist. It sounds just like a wetland near home in Indiana. How crazy is that? This is the top of the forest in Borneo and the bottom of the temperate forest in Indiana. These two sound the same. And then I thought about this. Wait a minute. They have the same kinds of animals, the same kinds of crickets and the katydids and the frogs and the amphibians. We have the same composition. That's why I hear. And you know what? I heard the same tempo. I study tempo as one of the things that's a measure of ecosystem health. So I began to think about this as cross-comparison. How are these places so different? Or how are they so similar? In some cases, I go to different places and I almost hear the same thing. I can close my eyes. The most emotional research project that I've ever had was one where I spent about 3 months in Mongolia. And I spent time there trying to understand the sounds of grasslands. But what I discovered is that the sounds of nature are spiritual to the people that exist there as herders. These are pastoralists. They're mobile. They move around the entire grassland with their livestock. But the sounds that they make, it's not just music. These are sounds and songs that are expressions of identity, heritage, and connections to nature. I had the privilege of meeting up with the Elvis Presley of Mongolia. He probably doesn't know who Elvis Presley is, but anyway, he's very famous. And he wanted to share the songs that he has made. And he took me and my colleague there to the birthplace of his parents. And he began to sing and tune his throat to the sounds of the wind and the sounds of the water, and then mimic the birds that existed there. And so I asked another group, these are the Beatles of Mongolia, and I said, so, I'm really deeply concerned about the sounds of nature, that they would be lost forever. What would happen to humanity if these sounds were to be lost? And they said, Professor, we would no longer be human. That touched my heart deeply. So what I'm doing here is asking you to join my mission, to go out and just listen and discover the marvelous sounds of this planet through your ears. Thank you.